We always in New Jersey want at least 2 introductions. Thank you very much. Had a lot of enthusiastic Iowans out in the lobby of the hotel who were stopping me on my way in here and asking me for pictures and stuff, and I have weakness for that, so I just couldn't say no. It's great to be back in Iowa, and thank you so much for you all being here to support Congressman King. That's what I'm here to do. And let me tell you a little bit about me and Steve King. Because upon first glance, you might not all think that me and Steve King are the most natural of allies. This guy from New Jersey and this congressman from Iowa. But let me tell you, here's the thing that we have most in common. We stand up for what we believe in. And that's what initially drew Steve King and I together. You see, back in 2009, when I was running for governor of New Jersey, I was hauled before a subcommittee of Congress when the Democrats were in charge of the House, essentially to berate me about some stuff I had done and some companies I had prosecuted when I was U.S. Attorney for 7 years before that. And essentially the Democrats were doing it to make a campaign commercial for my opponent, John Corzine. Now, that's what I thought when I got dragged down there, and wouldn't you know it, 3 weeks after I was down there, it was in a campaign commercial for John Corzine, all the video. And there were a whole group of Democrats there. All the Democrats in the subcommittee were there. All but one Republican came in and out of the committee. They walked in and out, and they'd ask a nice question, and they'd leave. There was only one guy who stayed there the entire time. There was only one guy who stood up for me during that hearing. There was only one guy who went on the attack against the Democratic chairman, who was attacking me for prosecuting a company that resided in his district and had given hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions to him. There was only one guy who put that on the record. That's the guy we're here for today, Congressman Steve King. And let me tell you something, I'd never met him before. I'd never met him before. And he stayed in that room the entire time. He had done his homework about this issue. He stood up and defended me. He went on attack against the Democrats who were trying to mischaracterize my record, and he never left his chair for the entire 2 hours of that hearing until he saw I was up and safely out of there. I saw him after that, introduced myself to him, and I said, you know, I don't know if there's going to ever be any way I can repay you for what you just did for me, but let me tell you something. If I ever do become something, if you need me, I'll be there to help you. Now, of course, I won that election in 2009, and we did pretty well in New Jersey. Most of 2010, turned around a state that was in desperate straits, an $11 billion deficit on a $29 billion budget is what I inherited in New Jersey from John Corzine. Fortunately, lots of you people out here are familiar with John Corzine, but in a totally different capacity. His short-term stewardship of MF Global. You know, he did the same thing to New Jersey that he did to MF Global. Left me with an $11 billion deficit, a $29 billion budget, and we fixed that problem. And for the first time in 8 years, the people in New Jersey went a year without a tax increase. We had 115 tax increases. 115 tax and fee increases in the 8 years before I became governor. Now imagine that. Imagine that. That is a tax or fee increase every 25 days for 8 years under Democratic leadership. So as we began to turn that around, I got a call from Steve King asking me if I could come and help raise some money for him and campaign for him here in Iowa. Of course I said yes. And I came out here in 2010, worked with him and campaigned for him. And when I saw him out here in Iowa that time in 2010 when I came out, he said, I remember what you said to me in Congress. You said if you ever became something, you'd be happy to help me. And he said, I made a pretty good investment, didn't I? That's up for him to decide, but I will tell you that at a time where our country is in such grave danger, a time when our country is facing a fiscal crisis like none we've ever seen in our nation's history. $16 trillion in debt. $1.5 trillion in debt being piled on every year for the last 4 years. We need strong and clear voices on fiscal restraint like Steve King in the House of Representatives. We cannot permit the Democrats to retake the House of Representatives. Because if, as I believe, Mitt Romney will be elected president in 45 days, then a Democratic House will stymie the things that he's going to want to do to bring America back. And if for some reason the president were reelected, we need a Republican House there to be able to stand up and fight against the things that the president will want to do to expand government and raise taxes and make government bigger and more intrusive in our lives every day. All that can't be accomplished if we don't win with Steve King here. We have to make sure that this year, which is the year that's always the most difficult for a member of Congress, when they have redistricting, there's a new district, they're representing new folks who aren't used to being represented by them. They need to make their case. This is the year that folks like us who know Steve King, who like Steve King, and who trust Steve King, we're the folks who have to stand up during these times and give testimony to the other people who are new to his representation. They may know him by reputation, but it's different, you know? It's different. You feel differently about your own congressman than you do about the others you might know. You feel more of a connection. You know them better. Maybe they've come to your front door and campaigned. Maybe they've been in your town or in your county campaigning, and you've gotten to see them and look them in the eye and take the measure of the person. Well, Steve King needs us to give that testimony now in the next 45 days to those folks who he's never represented before here in Iowa. To let them know that he's somebody who stands up for the conservative values that we believe in. He's somebody who stands up for fiscal restraint, responsibility, and lower taxes, and empowering the individual. So that Washington, D.C. and the bureaucrats in the cubicles back there aren't the ones picking the winners and losers in America. But the winners and losers in America are decided the way they've always been, by integrity and ingenuity and hard work. That's why I think all of us would rather be judged, rather than having some government agency decide whether we're deserving of something or not. We'd rather have it come from our own sweat, from our own thoughts, and from our own integrity that we hold dear. That's the way we should be making these decisions in America. And if we keep Steve King in Congress, we have a better chance of that happening than if we sent his opponent there. Now, I just got off the phone with Congressman King. You all know he's back in Washington, D.C., fighting the good fight over the Farm Bill. And he told me he regrets not being here. I told him, don't worry, I got your back. I'll handle this. You do your job. You do the job the people of your district elected you to do. And they'll understand why you're not here. Today we're amongst friends. People who know Steve and who support him and who believe in the policies he's pursued and advocated over the course of his career, believe in his family. And so we, while he's back there fighting the good fight, we got to keep the campaign rolling along. We can't allow this gap, we can't allow Mrs. Vilsack to use this time when he's away in Washington doing his job to be able to catch some momentum here. So we need to redouble our efforts. So in a lot of ways, while I miss Steve being here today, I'm just as happy to be the soldier who's covering his post while he's back in Washington, D.C. doing what he does. So what do we need to do now over the next 45 days? I mean, let's be real clear. We can't take anything for granted here. Let's start off with the presidential race. The state of Iowa is a state of consequence, everybody. You are a state of consequence. You're going to help determine the next president of the United States. You always do it in the caucuses. And now you're doing it in the general election this year as well. I saw a poll this morning that says it is an absolute dead heat in Iowa between Mitt Romney and President Obama. Well, we need to get to work to turn that dead heat into a victory for Mitt Romney. You see the president with all his money and all his ads out here. But what he doesn't tell you is what is in store for America for the next 4 years. 4 more years of Barack Obama. I can tell you, he doesn't want to put this in a 30-second ad. Here's what it's going to be. It's going to be bigger government. It's going to be more spending. It's going to be government intruding more and more in your lives. It's It's going to be higher taxes, and it's going to be an agenda out of Washington, D.C. that doesn't empower the individual. And here's the only piece of evidence I think you need to confirm for yourself that what I'm saying is true. Remember back to the Democratic Convention, I don't know if any of you watched it. I forced myself to watch it. Got a big bottle of water for myself so I could remain hydrated and not get lightheaded. But I did it. Felt I owed it to my country. Sit there and listen what was coming out of there. And right before President Obama spoke, one of the things they said at that convention was government is the only thing we all belong to. Let me repeat that, because all of you should have been moaning. So some of you were eating and weren't listening. Let me say this again. They said government is the only thing we all belong to. I mean, now, listen. I wasn't born here in Iowa. And I wasn't raised here in Iowa. I was born in New Jersey. And I was raised in New Jersey. But I got to tell you something. That's not the America I know. See, the Constitution I read in school makes it really clear. We don't belong to the government. The government belongs to us. That's the way it works. See, the Constitution I read starts off with not we the government, but starts off with we the people. That's the way the Constitution starts. We the people give certain rights to government. We don't belong to government. I am not a piece of property. I am not a possession of the federal government. Although when I pay my taxes, sometimes I think I am. But I am not a piece of property or possession of the government. The government gets its power and authority from us. Now, there is no greater fundamental difference between Democrats and Republicans than that, everybody. We can stand up here and talk about a dozen different issues. And I spoke about many of them in my keynote address to the convention. How we're different than they are. What we believe and what they believe. And we stand for those things. But the greatest fundamental difference in this election between America run by Republicans and America run by Democrats was crystallized, I'm sure unintentionally, at the Democratic Convention by the President of the United States and his folks. Government is the only thing we all belong to. It is a patronizing statement. It is a denigrating statement. We don't all belong to government. And if you have any doubt about why this election is so important, stop listening to the talking heads on television. Stop listening to the liberal media and all their spin. And I tell you, I watch some of this stuff. I think they should have to turn in their press credentials for Obama for president credentials. Because that's what they're doing. That's fine. We as Republicans know that. We don't win by whining. We don't win by complaining. We don't win by dividing. We win when we talk about our ideas. We win when we talk about our principles. And so let's state those very clearly. And we believe in smaller government that's less intrusive in the individual's lives. We believe in lower taxes that allow you to decide how to spend more of your money, not the government. We believe in empowering the individual to achieve everything that they can possibly achieve with their lives, to reach their fullest potential. We do not believe in empowering the government to make those decisions for us. That's what the difference is between our parties. There are many others, but at the core, that's what it is. And the president made it clear he doesn't believe that. The government is the only thing we all belong to. If you have friends over the next 45 days who say they are undecided about who to vote for in the presidential election, or who to vote for in this congressional race between Steve King and Christie, repeat that phrase to them and ask them, do you believe that government is the only thing we all belong to? See, the Iowans that I've met over my many trips here in the last 2 years strike me as people of common sense, regardless of which party you belong to, regardless of whether or not you're affiliated with a party or you're an independent. All the folks I've met here have been people who have shown real common sense. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe what the president believes? That government is the only thing we all belong to? I don't believe so. I know Republicans don't believe that. And I don't believe most of the right-thinking independents believe that. And I'll tell you this, I don't even believe Democrats of goodwill believe that either. And so, when people ask you, what should we do, what's the difference in this race, that's the core difference. You can talk about the other issues, and we should. But when it comes down to it, when they look at you and say, why are you supporting Mitt Romney? Why are you supporting Steve King? It's because we believe the government belongs to us. We believe that the government should be a vessel to protect our freedoms and our liberty, not something that we must submit our freedom and liberty to. And so every day in New Jersey, I'm trying to make that happen for the citizens of our state. You know, they've now gone nearly 3 years without a tax increase in New Jersey. You can only imagine, I have a Democratic legislature. These folks, I vetoed now 3 income tax increases and had those vetoes sustained. And you can imagine these poor folks, these poor Democrats in the legislature. It's like they're in withdrawal, right? They got so used to, imagine this now. They raised taxes and fees in New Jersey every 25 days for 8 years. I mean, I'd like to say that it was the full moon. That the Democrats were impacted by the full moon. That every time there was a full moon, they just had to raise taxes or fees. But I can't say that, because they did it more frequently than every full moon. They did it every 25 days. For 8 years. They went into the pockets of our citizens in our state and said, no, we'll take some of that money. We know how to spend it better than you do. 25 days later, you had just recovered from that violation, and they're back again. So you can imagine what they're like now. It's like they're on the floor, they're sweating, they're twitching. They can't sleep. They are in withdrawal. They have to raise taxes. They don't know what to do. Our state budget today in New Jersey is smaller. Our fiscal year 2013 budget is smaller, spends less money than John Corzine spent in 2008 and 2009. They're twitching. They're sweating. I mean, this is disorienting for these poor folks. They can't understand a government that can actually get smaller. In fact, we have fewer government employees on the state payroll today than we've had any time since January of 2001. They don't understand this. Now, I do have to painfully admit that New Jersey, over the past 24 years, has been a blue state from a presidency perspective. The last Republican that New Jersey went for was President Bush 41 in 1988. Ever since that time, we've been blue, from 1992 forward. But even in a state like New Jersey, they're watching what's happening, and things are changing. How do I know that? Here's how I know it. See, my poll numbers in New Jersey go up or down, depending on what comes out of my mouth. And as you all know, that can be variable. So we don't worry so much about my poll numbers. Here's what I look at about the success or failure of our policies and how I think it applies to the rest of the country. In the week before I was elected governor, they asked that question in one of those public polls that they asked all of them. Do you think your state's moving in the right direction, or do you think it's off on the wrong track? In the week before I was elected governor, in October of 2009, 19% of New Jerseyans felt their state was moving in the right direction. 19%. Less than 1 in 5 people in New Jersey thought the state was moving in the right direction, that it was a good place to live, that they felt good about themselves and their state. Now, in the nearly 3 years since then, we've cut spending to below 2008 levels. We've cut government employment at the state level to below levels of 2001. We've vetoed income tax increases. We've cut the business tax. We've balanced 3 budgets in a row. We've cut spending and we've made priority choices. We took on the public sector unions and reformed pensions and health care entitlements to save $132 billion over the next 30 years. Said it could never be done. Tens of thousands of people protesting on the steps of the State House. But we did it. We did all those things that people said were the third rail of politics. Now, a poll came out this week. They asked New Jerseyans, do you think your state's moving in the right direction? Or do you think it's off the wrong track? 53% of New Jerseyans now believe their state is moving in the right direction. 53%. It's not about me. It's not about me, it's about our policies. It's about our principles. It's about what they've seen me willing to fight for. And what I'm not willing to back off on. See, as a party, I believe that's a lesson for our entire country, because believe me, if we can convince people in New Jersey that less spending, smaller government, lower taxes, less government employees, turn the state from 19% right direction to 53% right direction, in a place that's been blue for 24 years, if we can do it there, if we follow those same principles in every state across this country, and most importantly, in Washington, D.C., the people will follow us and join in the shared sacrifice in the same way. See, what I know we believe as a party is everybody has to have skin in the game. Everybody has to be part of a shared sacrifice when we dig ourselves out of this hole. There can be no special cases. Everybody has to be part of it. That's what it's been like in New Jersey. And now you see the change that's happened there. And the change is going to continue to happen. Because our people are now committed to a course that they are now saying is the right direction for our state. A state with 700,000 more Democrats than Republicans is saying that. So what can happen here in Iowa? You know, that's the thing that we should be talking about over the next 45 days. That if we stand for our Republican principles, that those are attractive to independents, that those are attractive to right-thinking Democrats, that we will promise them we'll stand up for those principles and we'll fight for them, even when they're unpopular. Because as I said in the speech at the convention, you know, every politician looks at polls. And any politician who comes before you behind one of these podiums and says to you they don't look at polls, they are lying. They are flat out lying to you. We all look at polls. Why do you think we pay so much money to take them? So that we don't read them? We read them and we look at them. Here's the difference. Real leaders don't follow polls. If what those polls are saying are opposite their principles. See, the leadership we have in the White House right now takes a poll and then decides their policy. They want to say yes to you for everything. See, my attitude is this. Real leaders don't follow polls. Real leaders change polls. That's what real leaders do. Real leaders say, I think you're wrong on this one, folks. If you believe it in your heart. And here's why. It makes the argument to you as to why you should change your mind. That's what real leaders do. When we agree with you, that's easy. We all can say yes. The hard thing in politics is saying no. Is saying no when we need to say no. But our country has not said no enough. No to bigger government. No to higher taxes. No to more spending. No to piling trillions of dollars of debt on our children and grandchildren. We haven't said no enough, everybody. So that's what this election is about over the next 45 days. You know he can say no. Right? We've heard Steve King say no. We've heard him say loudly and clearly on things that he doesn't believe in. We've also heard him say yes to fighting for the things that he does believe in. That's the kind of leader you want in Washington, D.C. representing you. Not that you're always going to agree with everything, but that you look him in the eye and you know he's a man of character. You look him in the eye and you know he's going to tell you the truth. You look him in the eye and you know he's going to stand for what he believes in. Because you can't anticipate every issue that's going to come across that desk. Every issue is going to come up for a vote in the House of Representatives. But if you know who that person is, you'll probably be able to predict what he'll do. Those are the kind of leaders we need. So I'm here to support Steve King today because he's one of those leaders. Not because I agree with every word that comes out of Steve's mouth, nor does he agree with every word that comes out of mine. That shouldn't be the litmus test. I tell people in New Jersey all the time, you looking for the perfect candidate to vote for? Look in the mirror. You're the only person you agree with all the time. So, where do we sit? What are our core beliefs? Who will we stand up for? And how will we fight? How do we choose those fights? And how do we wage those battles? That's when you decide who you want your leaders to be. I'll tell you this, I made my decision. That's why I endorsed Mitt Romney a long time ago. Not because I agree with every word that comes out of his mouth, but because I believe we need fundamental change in Washington, D.C. And I believed then and I believe now that he is the best man who made himself available to defeat the President of the United States. And so with 45 days left, it's not time to get weak in the knees, everybody. It's not time to play Hamlet. Not time to wonder what we should be doing. And it's not time to play, amateur campaign manager. It's time to fight for someone who we believe will help to change Washington. Mitt Romney is one of those people, in my opinion. I hope it is in yours. I hope you'll fight for him here in Iowa. But so is Steve King. He's been a good, loyal friend to the people of his district and the people of this state. He's been a loyal servant to our country. And he has been a good and loyal friend to me. So that's the guy I choose to stand with. So let's work together over the next 45 days to, for once and for good, repudiate the statement, government is the only thing we all belong to. We have to stand up against that for the next 45 days. We have to dismiss it as a policy idea in Washington, D.C., and we have to return to the principles espoused in our Constitution. That the government belongs to us, we the people, not the other way around. You support Steve King, you work for him, he'll stand for those things in Washington. You support Mitt Romney and you vote for him, he'll stand for those things in Washington. And if you ever need a soldier in that fight, I'm only about a 2-hour flight away. Pick up the phone and give me a call. I'm happy to come back here to Iowa anytime to fight with people of goodwill who want to stand up for those conservative Republican principles together. You're willing to stand up and fight with me, I'm always going to be willing to stand up and fight with Iowa. So thanks for having me here today. Steve said his best. Good to see you all.